Meaning doesn't protect you from emptiness. That's not philosophy. It's a clinical observation that began appearing quietly in hospitals in the late 20th century. Parents devoted to their children, doctors committed to healing, caregivers whose lives clearly matter. Despite meaning, exhaustion persists. This contradiction, meaningful lives, destabilized minds, is where medicine stopped listening to psychology alone, and where this story continues. By the 1960s and 70s, psychology faced a problem. Large population surveys showed that after income rises, marriage, promotions, or achievements, people returned to emotional baseline. This pattern appeared repeatedly in long-term happiness data collected across Western countries. The implication was unsettling. Pleasure didn't accumulate. Circumstances didn't solve well-being. So psychology pivoted. Influenced by post-war existential thought and early resilience research, meaning was reframed as the stabilizer. If suffering could be interpreted as purposeful, it might become tolerable. Early studies supported this. People who described their lives as meaningful endured hardship longer. That endurance became the evidence. What wasn't measured yet was biological cost. By the 1980s and 90s, medicine began noticing a contradiction. The highest burnout rates weren't in pleasure-driven populations. They were in meaning-dense roles: healthcare, teaching, caregiving. Occupational health data repeatedly showed higher emotional exhaustion and depression in professions defined by responsibility and service. These were not empty lives. They were overloaded ones. This pattern was eventually formalized when burnout entered international medical classification as an occupational phenomenon, meaning had not prevented breakdown, it had delayed it. Neuroscience clarified why. Meaning is not an emotion, it is a cognitive process. Meaning making relies on the prefrontal cortex, the same system responsible for restraint, planning, and overriding impulse. This was established through decades of cognitive neuroscience and mental fatigue research. These systems evolved for short-term regulation. They consume energy rapidly. They fatigue predictably. Dopamine research demonstrated something critical. Motivation chemistry does not reward purpose. It rewards progress and prediction error. When effort continues without visible change, dopamine signaling drops, even if the task remains meaningful. This explains a clinical reality medicine sees often. People can fully understand why they are suffering and still feel depleted by it. Psychology assumed meaning functioned like nourishment. Stress physiology showed otherwise. In the 1990s, research into chronic stress introduced the concept of allostatic load, yet the cumulative wear on the body from prolonged demand. Meaning doesn't reduce load. It allows the body to tolerate load longer. That distinction matters. Tolerance is not recovery. Endurance is not repair. Purpose keeps people functioning under strain until the strain exceeds biological limits. This is why collapse often appears sudden. The cost was accumulating quietly. Historically, meaning had boundaries. Work followed daylight. Roles were seasonal. Rest was enforced by environment and culture. Anthropological and evolutionary research shows that recovery was not optional. It was built into survival. Modern meaning is different. It is abstract, continuous, infinite. There is always more to contribute, improve, or optimize. Evolutionary biology describes this as a mismatch. Ancient nervous systems operating inside limitless modern demand. The brain receives no biological signal for enough, so vigilance never turns off. What feels like commitment psychologically registers as chronic threat physiologically. By the early 2000s, clinicians noticed a consistent pattern. Patients did not stabilize when their lives gained more meaning. They stabilized when physiological demand decreased. Sleep regularity, predictable routines, reduced constant evaluation. Autonomic nervous system research supported this ordering. The body regulates first. Interpretation follows. The nervous system does not ask, does this matter? It asks, is this safe or ongoing? Meaning, could not answer that question. Meaning did not fail. It was misassigned. Happiness was never the biological goal. Meaning was never the biological solution. The human nervous system is optimized for survival under temporary load, followed by recovery. When load becomes permanent, even noble, meaningful load, regulation breaks down. This is not a crisis of purpose. It is a constraint of biology. If happiness fades and meaning exhausts, then what has medicine been quietly protecting all along? Not joy, not purpose, something more basic, more mechanical, more stabilizing. That unanswered constraint is where the next layer begins.